Imagine this: the world is perfectly normal, and then, without warning, oxygen vanishes. Not for a day. Not for an hour. Just one single minute. Welcome to Information World. Oxygen is so common that we almost forget it exists. We breathe it without thinking. We depend on it without noticing. It makes up about 21% of the air around us, and every second of your life depends on it silently doing its job. But what if that invisible support system suddenly disappeared, everywhere on Earth, all at once, for just 60 seconds? At first, nothing looks different. The sky doesn't change color. Buildings don't collapse instantly. People don't vanish. But physics does not care about appearances. The moment oxygen disappears, the laws that keep life stable begin to unravel. The first thing that happens is pressure. Oxygen is a major contributor to atmospheric pressure. When it disappears, air pressure drops instantly. This sudden pressure change creates a global shock wave. It wouldn't feel like a gentle breeze. It would feel like a powerful, violent blast, similar to what happens when an airplane cabin suddenly depressurizes, but happening everywhere at the same time. Your ears would pop instantly. Anyone with weak eardrums could suffer ruptures. The pressure inside your body would no longer match the pressure outside. Gases inside your lungs would expand rapidly, causing intense pain. Trying to hold your breath would not help. In fact, it would make things worse. At the same moment, your lungs stop working. Oxygen is the final destination of every breath you take. Without it, your blood cannot collect oxygen molecules. Hemoglobin becomes useless. Your brain, which consumes about 20% of the oxygen your body uses, begins to panic almost immediately. Within about 10 seconds, most people would lose consciousness. Not because they are injured, but because the brain cannot function without oxygen. Thoughts fade. Vision narrows. Muscles lose control. People collapse where they stand. But here is something shocking. You would not explode. Movies often show humans bursting in space without oxygen. That is not accurate. The human body is surprisingly strong. However, exposed skin would begin to swell slightly as gases inside tissues expand. Saliva on your tongue would start to boil, not because it is hot, but because low pressure lowers the boiling point of liquids. Your blood would still be flowing, your heart still beating, but it would be delivering nothing useful. Meanwhile, something terrifying happens to the planet itself. Oxygen is not just for breathing. It plays a huge role in how Earth behaves. Without oxygen, the atmosphere loses its protective ozone layer instantly. Ozone is made from oxygen molecules, and it shields Earth from harmful ultraviolet radiation. For that 1 minute, the surface of the planet would be directly exposed to intense UV rays from the sun. Anyone outdoors would suffer severe radiation exposure. Skin cells would be damaged at the DNA level. This would not kill you instantly, but it would dramatically increase cancer risk later for survivors. The oceans would react next. Water is H2O, meaning it contains oxygen atoms bound to hydrogen. Those oxygen atoms would not disappear because they are chemically bonded. But dissolved oxygen in water would vanish. Fish and marine life that rely on dissolved oxygen would experience immediate respiratory failure. Many smaller organisms would die within seconds. Now let's talk about fire, or rather, the sudden lack of it. Every flame on Earth would go out instantly. Wildfires would stop. Candles would die. Engines would shut down. Jet turbines, car engines, power plants that rely on combustion all would fail at once. Planes in the sky would lose thrust. Pilots would have no engine power, only gravity and momentum. Most commercial planes would begin uncontrolled descents. Electricity would not completely vanish, but power grids would destabilize. Backup systems designed for short failures would struggle. Hospitals would be thrown into chaos, not just because of power loss, but because patients on oxygen support would instantly be cut off. Now let's return to the human body at around the 30-second mark. If oxygen has not returned yet, brain cells begin to die. Neurons are extremely sensitive. Permanent brain damage begins after about 4 minutes without oxygen, but even at 1 minute, some damage may already start, especially in vulnerable individuals such as the elderly, children, or those with medical conditions. Muscle cells begin to switch to anaerobic metabolism. This produces lactic acid. Your body becomes acidic internally. Even if oxygen comes back, This sudden chemical imbalance causes severe pain, confusion, and organ stress. At the same time, your eyes suffer. The cornea depends on oxygen from the air. Without it, vision becomes blurry. The surface of the eye begins to dry rapidly. Anyone wearing contact lenses would experience intense damage. Now let's imagine the moment oxygen returns. At exactly 60 seconds, oxygen floods back into the atmosphere. Air pressure normalizes. Flames do not automatically relight, but engines may restart. People who lost consciousness begin to wake up. But survival is not guaranteed. Many people would inhale sharply, triggering coughing, choking, and panic. The lungs, suddenly flooded with oxygen again, would experience oxidative stress. This is similar to what happens in certain medical oxygen injuries. Cells damaged during oxygen deprivation now face a sudden chemical shock. Some people would survive with no lasting effects. Others would suffer memory loss, motor problems, or personality changes due to mild brain damage. Hospitals would be overwhelmed. Emergency rooms would be filled with people suffering from respiratory injuries, heart problems, and neurological symptoms. Animals would not be spared. Birds in flight would fall from the sky. Insects, which rely on oxygen diffusion through their bodies, would experience massive die-offs. Livestock would collapse in fields. Ecosystems would be shaken deeply. Plants would suffer too. Photosynthesis depends on oxygen balance. For 1 minute, photosynthesis would halt globally. Most plants would survive, but sensitive species could suffer cellular damage. The long-term effects would be subtle but real. The ozone layer would take time to rebuild. During that period, Earth would receive more UV radiation than normal. Crop yields could decrease. Skin cancer rates would rise. Marine ecosystems already under stress could collapse further. Technology would also feel the impact. Satellites exposed to increased radiation would suffer damage. GPS accuracy could be affected. Communication systems might experience disruptions. Now comes the most unsettling question. Could humanity recover? Yes. But not without scars. 1 minute without oxygen would not wipe out humanity, but it would be remembered as the most traumatic event in human history. Millions could die, especially those in vulnerable situations. Civilization would survive, but trust in the stability of reality itself would be shaken. We like to believe that the world is solid, reliable, permanent. Oxygen reminds us that everything we depend on is invisible, fragile, and temporary. Life exists not because the universe guarantees it, but because conditions happen to align perfectly, moment by moment. That 1 minute would change how we see the air around us forever. Every breath after that would feel heavier, more meaningful, more precious. Because once you imagine a world without oxygen, even for 60 seconds, you realize something profound. The most powerful forces shaping life are often the ones you never see. If this video made you think, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next journey here on Information World.